While the world looks away, the Taliban in Afghanistan clamped down on human rights in the country. In the latest blow, the Taliban supreme leader has ordered judges to fully enforce Sharia or Islamic law, an edict that could see the return of public floggings, executions, and stonings for certain crimes. Women especially could be at the receiving end of many of these punishments. During their previous rule in the mid-90s, the Taliban routinely stoned women for the crime of adultery. And just last week, the group banned women from entering parks, gyms, and public baths, the latest in a long line of restrictions on women and girls. And the UN has noticed. Just last week, it said the country was in crisis and called for the world to take action.
Afghanistan is now the only state in the world that would deny girls their full right to education. The prospect of girls' education has been left to uncertainty amid seemingly random edicts from the Taliban. I reiterate my call for the protection of fundamental rights and freedom of all Afghans, especially women and girls.
And joining me now for more is Sahar Fetrat, an assistant researcher with Human Rights Watch. Sahar, just last week, the UN issued another call to protect Afghanistan's women and girls in particular. Do you think the world is too preoccupied with other concerns to be listening?
Well, there's a lot happening in the world right now. Afghanistan is one of them. And unfortunately, one of the biggest crises and one of the biggest women's rights crises is happening there right now. The world must give proper attention to Afghanistan because of not only what's happening there, but also the effect that it will have to the world outside Afghanistan. The way the Taliban...
Please go on.
The way the Taliban treat women and the way they restrict women, the kind of misogyny that they promote is not something that would have its borders only in Afghanistan. It's something that can and will go beyond borders, and that's why the world needs to pay more attention to the situation of human rights and women's rights in Afghanistan. As well as their responsibility after 20 years of engagement.
Right. You speak of Taliban's misogyny. Speaking of that, the Taliban have now also mandated laws that could potentially see a return to things like executions and stonings. Now, given that the last time the Taliban were in power, women were stoned to death for the crime of adultery, for instance, do you think this could happen again now?
Well, I mean, with everything else, the Taliban have not changed. They're the same people. The Taliban, some people were very hopeful about the Taliban changing, but the Taliban identify themselves with the way, they treat women and their horrible mistreatment of women and girls. And they have a name and fame and recognition for that. That we have seen that nothing has changed in terms of behavior in other parts. For example, girls not going back to school, women not allowed to work, cutting women from all public spaces, and also making private spaces impossible for women to have freedom and breathe.
Right.
So the Taliban are the same. If they're going back to the Sharia, the way they applied Sharia in the past, it's going to be the same thing. That's why we need the world to take action. We need the world to put the Taliban under pressure.
This doesn't paint a very bright future for women in Afghanistan, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Women in Afghanistan have literally lost every right. From the very personal to the very political. And women in Afghanistan cannot it's not that women in Afghanistan have every right and then they go to protest or to show civil resistance or disobedience. Women are going to Afghanistan to the streets and risking their lives.
Right.
But only thing that's left to them is which is their bodies, to go and to ask for the very basic rights that they should have, that they should enjoy. I'm talking to a lot of women, and one thing they know for sure is that they will not stop. I've talked to many women who say they will not stop protesting until the day they can take their teenage daughters back to school, until the day they can make money and, make that slogan, woman work freedom, actually happen in real life.
We'll leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us today, Sahar Fitrath. Now, women in Afghanistan are technically allowed to attend universities, but their subject choice is restricted, unlike for men. Still, many women persevere, such as 17-year-old Fatima Amiri, who earned one of the highest scores in the country's tough university entrance exam. A remarkable achievement, given that she did this 1 month after suffering severe injuries in an attack on her school in late September.
Fatima Amiri lost an eye and the hearing in one ear when a suicide bomber blew himself up in the school where she and dozens of other students were studying for Afghanistan's university entrance exam. At least 54 people were killed in the attack. Most were women and girls. Many were Amiri's friends. She was still recovering from her injuries when she sat the entrance exam, known as the canker.
The day I took the exam, it had been 1 month that I was away from my books, and that month passed in pain. I had lost my friends. I had gone through several operations. I took my exam, and that day I felt the absence of my friends. I was happy that I could take the exam, but my pain didn't allow me to be really happy.
Amiri's father says the build-up to the exam was hard.
The day before the exam in Kabul, she cried until evening. We tried everything we could to keep her happy and assured her that, no matter what, we would take her to the exam.
Like Amiri, many of the victims were members of Afghanistan's Shiite minority Hazara community, which is frequently targeted in deadly attacks by the Islamic State group. Despite her physical pain and losing her friends, Amiri scored 313 out of a possible 360 on the canker. Her achievement was all the more remarkable because the Taliban have barred girls from attending secondary school in most of Afghanistan. Amiri wants to study computer science and would like to go to university abroad.